Had a bit of a weird bug there for a second. Hi guys, it's Ben from Second Dynasty here. With me in the background, I have Zorima as usual. And today we're going to do some internal work on the Notinante. I'm very behind. Say hello, Zorima.
Hello.
So you can kind of see in front of me the mess I have right here. Um, do we have any questions to address though before we get into things, Zorima?
Other than the question about stat blocks and relevance to certain games, I didn't have any particular questions that were new to this week.
Right. So as far as stat blocks and that go, all of my models are supposed to be like system agnostic. So basically, if you want to use them in 40k, you want to use them in Pathfinder, Traveler, Star Wars, for example. Those are all completely possible. Or the Expanse for the Notinante, of course. I have a copy of that here. It's not designed for miniature play, but why not? It's possible. In any case, it could be a cool idea to start it out for different systems, but I myself only really play of those games mentioned Traveller at the moment. Well, not even at the moment. I don't know the game systems well enough to stat them out, so that'd be something that I'd really like to work with some fans with, maybe, to get it sorted. It would be pretty cool to see. Good afternoon, Rex333. So yeah, if there are no further questions, perhaps I'll just show this week's progress. The ship is actually at a part at the moment because I'm working on the lighting systems. Zorima and I are going to have a little meeting after this is done. And we do have a few experiments. I have a... Oh, yeah. We have a little crew area there with the lighting's a bit bright at the moment, but just experimenting with a few different systems that we might integrate. Purely optional. You'll be able to make it aesthetically look good with or without lighting, but yeah, it's in progress. Very exciting. I've had a hell of a time getting the stuff imported here lately because of the way things are set up, and I think maybe there might have been one or two corona delays, but the FedEx came to me on Wednesday. Had to work home on Thursday, and so today is the first day I really get to play with it all. So we have this mess of a scene here, and the reason this is a mess is because I'm in the process of sort of like grabbing bits and pieces from different old models to create new ones. Even if I use like a new... Well, let me give you an example. I'm just going to take off the bridge, and this is the airlock level I was talking about with the sort of suits in place. You can see where the suits go here. And then we have these... I was thinking that would stick the battery behind here. It has a little channel to feed it through. But the one I've got at the moment is maybe a bit too thick, and I don't really have enough room to sort of like move it forward any. So I'll have to rethink that for the final version. But yeah,
You put it in the originally, but we'll work out those details.
yes. It's still possible to... The only thing is you'd need 2 coin cells, so we'd need to stick them in this one. Maybe if we made this, this, and this as one piece, there would be some room underneath to sort of thread it up. It's just a bit tight at the moment.
You put it underneath behind the gun rack, I think.
Well, there's not... The gun rack hasn't got very much room at all. It's right up against the wall. So... the other thing we could... Nah, that'd be too tricky. Anyway, this is stuff that I don't know if it'll make it to the final version, the commercial version, but it will definitely I'm gonna try and get as much lighting as possible in the initial version, and we'll see how much we can put into the final version.
Yeah, we're still early days on the lighting thing, so.
Yeah, we were talking about doing some lighting here in the floor of this section, but I'm worried now that the battery is going to be a little bit too big for that cavity. It's going to have to be deeper, so we'll see.
Possible I might be able to get different mounting for the battery too. Just trying to get things redone for you is all.
Yeah, like if there was some side bracing instead of like top and bottom, maybe that might work. But we'll see. In any case, it's kind of exciting to see the lighting come into place. Now, why haven't I got further than I intended to this week? Well, the simple reason is I've kind of become a victim of my own interest in detail, and I've actually, let me isolate this. I actually started working with the captain's cabin. Oh, we're missing one major piece there, and actually two, let's call it. So this is the captain's cabin. You can see the ladder well there. You come off the level. This is the crew water closet, I guess. Works in a conventional way under gravity. I've been considering doing a space toilet, but I think I'll do it as a sort of maybe a stretch goal or something at that point, because we're just way behind at this point, even if we're launching in August. So you have the captain's cabin here. This little cavity is actually for sticking a light in. It might need some revision. I did test it, but the light was way too bright and focused for the purposes there. So Zoram and I will have a little chat later and see what we can come up with. Here we have, it doesn't actually fold out, but if I move the pivot point down, you get the idea that this would be a crash couch, so that if the captain was stuck in his cabin, he'd get on the crash couch here, get on the juice, have a safe place to sort of sit. If you look at the Notinante, it's got that as well. Got suit locker for emergencies, and then a little office area here in the corner. So there's a nice bed, storage. We've got ventilation. So it got a bit detailed, is where I got stuck in the details. And why waste so much time on one room? Well, the reason is because when we get to the next room along, we reuse a lot of pieces, like the crash couches. This is a crew quarters with 4 berths. They could potentially hot bunk those, or they could have them as separate rooms, but you've got 4 crash couches as well, a bit of storage. They would use a communal bathroom. And right now, I'm actually working a few decks below, because the next one, the next 2 decks down, we've got pretty much empty rooms at the moment. And these are going to be for... I considered adding more rooms here, but it makes more sense to do it where the ship sort of widens out here, and I'll show that in a second. But we're dealing with medical, and the next one will probably be... I haven't quite got enough room to have separate decks for each thing, but I was thinking medical and a machine shop would be cool to have. Maybe one of them is an extra level. We do need more living space, and we do need like the kitchen galley sort of thing. Many of those parts are actually ready, they're just not in this scene. So I would say that these are mostly going to use some revisions of older parts for machinery and medical equipment. But then down here we've got our second... Oh, maybe we can just ditch that for now. We've got our second level of beds. And so in here we're going to have another 4 berths. Crash couches will be on this wall, I'm guessing. So I'm sort of like just in the process of blocking this out. and then maybe another 2 rooms here of sort of single rooms that could be for either important guests or the EXO room or something like that. So in total, we would have 8 bunks for crew and 3 bunks for higher ups. And of course, sorry.
Might consider an armory.
Well, the armory is integrated in the airlock. So back in the airlock here, we have the weapons lockers.
But you never want to store ammo in the same place you store weapons, though. Normally.
Okay. So
Military experience speaking. Sorry.
Yeah. I think the Notinante is actually poorly planned in the sense too that their weapons and armory is in the crew airlock, which is not a place I'd want to store. It's like, hey, welcome boarders. Oh, there, feel free to arm yourselves.
I think an actual armory might not be a bad option at some point. Anyway,
I think it could be done as a separate sort of level, because the beauty of having a tower is that you can just add stuff.
Place for your power suits and whatnot.
Yes. So the lift system I've shown off as well. So I thought today what we'll work on is some more detailing here in this secondary sleeping area. I can show you some of the unique challenges that we have trying to figure this out. If I just separate a few of these parts so we can see what kind of areas we're working with. Now I have test printed these rooms, and in fact we can get, well, why isn't that working? In a second.
And for any of you watching this later, after the feed, I posted up basically the link to Ben's Discord for more information or follow up or questions, as well as to go to his webpage to pick up product, various things, and to look at things there, or in the My Manufactory for individual items, and a link to last time's Kickstarter, which will basically, you can do a purchase there still and get the discounts on the big package there if you want on the previous show.
That's right. I've been running a little bit late with this one, so we're going to keep the last Pledge Manager open until we launch the next one. So here you can see the airlock room printed. I've got the side off. That's what we had with the lighting here. And then we have the next level down. It's a little bit hard to see with the grey and green there, but we've got the sort of crew, the crew sleeping and lockers. I'm really sorry for the shitty camera, guys. Really got to get a better one. Getting hard to find good ones these days, though. So the green one would be the officers' quarters. The absent space down here is where the water closets / shower units will go, and the doorways as well now use a separate piece, just a tiny little piece that slots in down on top so that you don't have any overhangs to print. Oh, lost that one. Sorry?
On your Prusa printer, which is what you use for this moment, how long did it take you to print one of your levels here?
Oh, this one? I would say about each room. One room was 6 hours. Another room was probably about 24 hours per level, I'd say. 24 to 30 hours. Probably looking at something like 36 hours for the exterior and interior. I'm not entirely sure. Depending on your level of detail, your printer, it's going to take more or less time. But there is some great detail in some of these pieces, so I can imagine some people, we're seeing a lot more people wanting to use resin, for example.
What was the layer height on this print?
That was 150 microns, so 0.15 of a millimeter per layer. And I'll probably put some pictures up of that on my Instagram and Facebook later today, so you can see the quality that I got out of that. So obviously, if you're going to use resin, or printed at a higher resolution, you're going to get much better results than what I did. And I'm still prototyping too. And I also always need to say that I am by no means an expert when it comes to 3D printing. So I'm sure there are people out there that will get much better results than what I have. And indeed, I've seen much better results. So what are we doing here? We have a few separate parts. Actually, I should get that bed back in. I've just turned on wireframing, and this helps me see in the shadows where pieces are intersecting. And actually, we kind of need to grab this and move it out. So guys, as usual, I see a couple of guys in the chat. Welcome back. If you guys have questions, be it about what I'm currently doing, what's going to be included in this... Geez, why did that go there? What's going to be included in this next Kickstarter? Questions about existing stuff, just wondering about modeling, whatever, really. This is the best place if you want to ask questions to do so. Yeah, so we're going to work on this room today. This provides a couple of challenges, not just because of the awkward shape of these objects, but we have in the ship section this oddly shaped hull, right? So we've already got the floor there, and we actually normally use these wall slots to slide items down on top of each other. Here I think we're going to... I don't quite know how we're going to join things yet, because this floor section is sort of built into that piece there. I'm maybe beginning to regret that a little bit. But we have this indentation, and with the upper level it's the opposite direction, right? So this moves inwards so that the hole thins out, because the PDCs are just up on the next level, right? And up the top it sort of comes back out again at the opposite angle, and that actually is really good for putting beds in. But because of the way that this is sort of curved, we don't have much space to work with. We're going to have to alter this model, because it's going to have to slot in on top of this other model. And there's a couple of things to consider here about what the best way of doing things might be. I'm actually wondering right now if maybe this entryway should be a separate model to the inside, and we should actually print this and this on its back as a piece that sort of slots in underneath.
It would make printing easier.
It would make printing easier, yeah. The only thing is the door really wants to be printed standing at this point in time, so that's something to consider. I'd also want to move these railings probably to this 45-degree angle there, because that'll won't print as it is without supports. If this is the way, if you imagine that this plane is where the print bed is, we've got overhangs here that it's not going to be able to deal with. And these beds are actually designed to print lying on their backs like this, so they would actually come out better. But it's always a bit of a game of musical chairs, moving things around, reorganizing them just so that things sort of slot into the correct sort of place.
Usually you print things with a lot of modularity and design and setup. Usually we try to find like separate airlock pieces. Everything's separated out. This is like Ben said, in development section. So how we're doing stuff or what he's designing and what's the best way to print it, still kind of like in flux yet.
Yeah, and I should add the caveat that it is more flexible in some ways doing things this way, and in others, because of how small the ship is, I'm actually making compromises in other areas that I wouldn't normally do. For example, right now I'd prefer to stick to a grid And the grid is there, you just can't see it. Like this right there, that's a 1 inch square there. The next one is here, sort of cut off a little bit. And there's another one in the doorway there, up to the edge. So it's not like they don't exist. It's just a case of if we had separate pieces here, we'd really be pushing the stability of the object. And that's not something we want to do.
Play-wise harder too.
So,
not following a grid, I mean.
Sorry?
Not following a grid makes it harder for gameplay, putting minis in later.
Yeah,
too.
it does. Which is also why I've gotten the grid a bit wider here, so that even though they won't sit exactly in the right place, you've still got enough room to get that miniature sitting in there. So you could probably fit about 3 of them in this room side by side if they have like a 1 inch base. So the question is what to do with this doorway. But let's see what else we've got here. Really got to turn off that top deck. Hang on. Airlock's gone there, so we shouldn't have so much crap on top. So assuming we're going to print these on their backs, we need a little bit more room here, and this wall is where we're running into issues. But, you know, since we are slotting in the top pieces here, there's nothing to say that we couldn't do that for the whole. We can technically do the whole way down to the bottom here. The only issue is if that part's on there at all, we can't get this back flat. It's always a challenge. Let's see. I don't know that that would be a good idea.
Speaking back about Starfinder, if you're planning on using it in Starfinder, which is cool, we haven't got together to work out stat blocks for all the ships. But if you're interested in that, Rasmus, contact me later, and maybe we can work out some stat blocks and put together some stuff for publishment, you know, with the product or with people, so that people have access to it. That's not a game I'm as familiar with, although I'm familiar with, you know, Wizard of the Coast products and so forth. So, you know, there's a lot of things out there that we could do that for, and we'd like to hear your ideas on that thought. The Discord would be a really good place to have a discussion on that and go into the suggestions and talk about certain things like that.
Yeah, for sure. All right. I think I've figured this out, guys. So our major issue here is this doorway with this sort of lock here. We don't have really much space here to be used. So there's no reason why we couldn't stick this door a little bit further up and just have the whole thing slot in 2 pieces between basically there and there. So I think what I'm going to do is just separate out these frames. We already have it sort of separated on this side. What I'm going to do is take out the frame, make it into a separate object. I do this by first going into my edit mesh here and detaching in Maya. Then we're going to just double click to select all of these faces here, and we're going to do what's it called?
Brasvin said something. Am I saying that right?
Brasvene. Slots on the bunks and doorways instead of clips. I mean, yeah, you'd have to describe that a bit more so we could follow that, I think.
Could you add some more detail on what you're testing?
All right.
Someone else just joined. Welcome.
Yeah, welcome to the stream, guys. I'm glad I got you here, Zorimus, so that you can fill in when I'm like, concentration. Yeah.
I posted the day before better this time, so I think we're getting more people popping in.
Yep. All right.
See if it work better if I do a 24-hour ahead of time posting and then do a follow up.
That could be an idea. All right. So the door frame here is just about separate. So my idea is to move the door frame basically to about there and have it as a sort of separate thing that slots in. So we're going to need a little bit more space here. So I'm going to select these. Let's see, did we get the whole thing? It looks like it. These are mirrored, by the way, so essentially this object here with the beds and this object here on the other side. You can see that when I'm dragging the mouse over, you're seeing when I select a face on this model on the right, you can see a tool on the one on the left. And this is done through a process called duplicate special and then an instance. So essentially this is a copy of the other one, but it's also a live copy. So when I modify one, it modifies the other. Okay, like the horizontal wall slots, have them on the edge of the doorway and the bunk so that they interlock. You mean for the like tops of the doorway?
I think he's talking about making the doorway a separate piece with like
Yeah, well, basically what we are doing.
Yeah. And then basically make it so each piece slides into that piece to make it more sturdy. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Obviously, this does have the downside of not being 100% favorable in some circumstances. Let's see. Mostly in the sense of I want to make sure that these things are as sturdy as possible, and every time like I put one of these things on that doesn't use a clip, it's not as stable as I'd like it to be, and it kind of gets into the territory of, well, do I glue it or do I leave it as it is? Will it, once it's got a coat of paint on it, stick really nicely? These are the sort of things that you don't really know until the end. Oh shit, that doesn't look right. Oh no, we just missed moving a piece there. So Maya's starting to respond a little bit slow because the file size is getting bigger, but so far so good. Let's see. So we just want to do a basic extrusion. Oh, now it wants me to move over to this model because it was the original one.
Yeah, these things are always kind of a give and take, Ross. With any kind of model that Ben does, obviously, because you got to decide detail versus, the angles, and do you want it kind of blocky or do you want it to be more artistically look cool? Or I mean, it's all part of it. Ben's got to make a lot of decisions on making things fit together and still make it practical.
There's often a better way too, but you kind of figure out what that better way is once you've already done it the wrong way, and then it becomes a matter of, well, how much time do I put into this?
Yeah, because like a lot of older stuff, he's learned stuff and would do it different now in some cases.
Oh, in many cases, like I didn't know what the hell I was doing before. Like if I look back at my old Starship 1 stuff, it's like, oh, can I really keep selling this? It feels wrong. But people still do pick up that old stuff, oddly enough.
Well, it's got a good price on it, and it's model quality versus what you can get elsewhere. It's wow. There's a lot of stuff you can get out there that is total crap and can't be printed worth a damn at all.
That's unfortunately true. I'd have to agree.
They don't test printed at all, or they test it on something with settings that is totally impractical.
Yeah. No, I'm with you there. Like sometimes, especially, I think there is a tendency for some people that are in the 3D game to sort of like have a look and think, shit, I can do this. But you really need to know printing as well and test print, make sure it works.
Yeah, like I had a guy that was talking on one of the boards I was on. He printed he was developing a game and so he made his models not 28 millimeter scale, although the buildings and so forth are 28 millimeter scale, so the models look disproportionate. And the reason being is because he wanted to make the minis themselves easier to print. And I'm like, okay, either change your design of your Mini so that it's not so complicated to print, make it freeform without supports, not requiring them, or don't print it big. I mean, don't compromise on the whole aesthetics look just because you're thinking that someone with FDM printers gonna have a harder time, or say you're supporting it in SLA print but not FDM, whatever.
Yeah.
Just be
So
honest and upfront about it.
yeah, I mean, it's not the easiest thing to figure out either. Like, it is a complicated process, and it definitely takes iteration, and it takes some discipline to get working. Let's see. I just want to sort of see how much room I've got here.
Ben's smart enough to at least learn to take input from the customers and listen to the feedback, as well as, include other people's different specialties, well, like the lighting and some of this stuff, and try to look at how to add value to the product in general, whatever that might be, on the modeling side or the printing side or whatever. And he takes that feedback and tries to fix things and make it better. People come back occasionally with different printers and say, hey, I can't print this, or I have a problem with that, or this doesn't work right. And then Ben looks at it and tests it again and goes, okay, makes a modification and puts out a new file. I've seen that happen multiple times.
Yeah, it has, and it doesn't happen always though. Like, I definitely have. I think since the Ender 3 came out and became basically the default cheap printer to run, I've been a little bit more like, yeah, no, print bed sizes, we want it to be this size minimum, and like, if you don't want to do this, cut it up. And that becomes like a question of more like, my problem is there's only one of me, there's a lot of stuff to maintain, and I'm stretched a bit thin on occasion, so I want to sort of like reduce downtime, I guess, would be the best way of putting it.
Yeah, but then you have the advantage of you use a lot of the people that use your product,
Yes.
love a lot of their work or feedback, or give them credit for it accordingly, so that things can be added to it that you don't have to spend your personal time on, but yet it's included or changed to make things better.
Yeah, having a community has been absolutely fantastic. Both in the sense of like, it helps inform my decisions about like what the next ship's gonna be, um, or what people are looking for. Clearly, there's a lot of loud voices that want very, very big ships, but they also have to fit.
That was an odd surprise, because like when you started, you were making smaller ships, and everybody kept going bigger, bigger, bigger.
Well, strong voices kept going bigger, 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 and then I wonder how much business was lost with the Chimera because of its size. But it's one of those things where you can't really 100% know.
Yeah, that may be, but I think also you attracted a lot of attention by using that larger ship too. I mean, maybe not every Kickstarter needs to be a large ship of that size, but but because of that ship being large, it attracted a different audience too, and other people involved that may grow a lot more different areas that you didn't have access to, or customer bases too.
Yeah, for sure.
I think long run, a plus minus.
Yeah. Yeah, I think in the end, I'm very, very happy with the way things turned out. To be honest, it's been great. I love doing what I do, and I'm excited to see the lighting getting integrated.
A lot of your design being appreciated.
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
There you go. There's someone. When I was talking about doing a double wide chimera.
Chimera. Well, who knows? We'd have to ask the ancient Greeks, and they're not around anymore.
Yeah.
I saw there is currently a campaign. It looks kind of cool. They've got miniatures and they've got ships all of a sudden. So it seems like people have cottoned on. I know Ian at the Dragon's Rest has done two great, fantastic vehicles that have sort of turned into smaller ships. And I would say if there's anyone that's on par with the detail level in ships, Dragon's Rest is a great place to check out that sort of stuff. Ian works hard, way harder than I do on his stuff. I think he
Yeah,
has
if you
the
need help
discipline.
tuning in your printing details to get better detail, because their profiles aren't always the greatest. Feel free to like post, like to ask for help on Ben's Discord or on the 3D printed desktop. That I frequent both, and I'm happy to help you with trying to refine your print. Should that come up?
Yep.
I say that because even though their product's good, a lot of times their profile for printing it is suckoid. I mean, they work good on like a Prusa, but some of the other printers there's issues.
Right. Yeah, but there is this new campaign out right now. I can't exactly remember what it's called. I think it's one to look out for. I'll plug it. Why not? Let's see. Avalon 8 is what it's called. I can link this into the where'd it go? Into the chat.
Yeah, somebody was
you guys check this guy out. It's reasonably priced for what it is, and they've got a ton of backers, which is great, and they're promising, I think, something stupid like 20 odd ships, and I just there's some great stuff on here. It's not quite as detailed. I don't think the interiors are done like mine are done, and there are definitely some overhangs here that I'd be worried about. But they have some great miniatures, and yeah, they're gonna have a busy year after this campaign, I think. But if you haven't backed it already, it's worth checking out. Let's see if we can't give them a little bit of a boost. It's mentioned on the on our Discord as well, I believe.
That Avalon thing, but that was more of a terrain base rather than a ship base. A lot of that stuff.
Oh yeah, they've just gone. I think it starts with the miniatures really, and then they've promised some ships as well. Some of them have like sort of landing craft sort of interiors. Yeah, this is feeling better. I think we're onto something here.
They're like tiny ships too, I think.
They are definitely smaller than the shuttle for the most part. So I'm just going to combine this, and oh no, that one disappeared, and that's because the instance is gone. So I'm going to continue to work on just this one side for now, and just going to bridge this section here. So the wall will go in between here, so we've got a bit of superstructure left, or what I'm calling superstructure. This is still going to print like this, and yeah, there's a couple of areas here that I don't know how the bridging's going to look. On the Prusa it looks great with bridging for the most part. I almost have no issues with bridging anymore. But I realize that some people might have a bit of more of a mess in here, so I might come back to it and add a crossbeam later. I don't know. But this is a bit thicker than it's supposed to be. Whatever. So if we leave a slot here in the side for this door frame, I think she'll be apples. Don't know how international that expression is. Have you ever heard that expression before, Zarama? She'll be apples.
Do what?
Yeah, that's what I thought you were gonna say. It could just be an Australian thing. Not quite as difficult to understand as like Struth or Crikey, but
Be the apples? Is that what you said?
she'll be apples. She'll be right. It means so.
Okay.
It
Yeah,
could be
definitely.
Cockney rhyming slang, and I've just lost the meaning because a lot of Australian slang is based on Cockney. like calling tomato sauce dead horse.
A free trader from Traveler. Yeah, I thought about doing some maybe more Traveler stuff, but
I'd love to do that. And if, to be honest, if there's a brand that might be able to support it, license it, I imagine Traveler might be the one. My issue with Traveler is I'm not that in love with Mongoose, if I'm being honest. And I was kind of waiting to see if maybe the license would transfer. Um, I
they would
mean,
let us
Mongoose is fine. It's just
supported product.
sorry.
I wonder if they'd let us do something like that as a supported product.
Well, yeah, I think see some of these smaller, not too large companies, and like Traveller, it's a well known IP within role playing, but it's also never had the popularity of Dungeons and Dragons, for example, or anything like that, and it doesn't have the kind of IP protection of like a Star Wars ship. So I think, in all honesty, that could be a good one to sort of approach them and say, "Hey, I make these 3D printable ships. It would be really cool to do like a scout ship or a free trader, and
One, I'll
do this."
dig. I'll dig into the idea and see if there's any possibility of getting to anybody that actually might be able to give us some info and maybe a process of how to or whatever.
That'd be cool.
From a licensing's point of view, I can always do some of the digging and see some of that. I can spend time on that. I got time.
Zorma's looking to make up his commission. I see.
Well, it's under the
You go for it.
goes under the marketing category, so you know.
Yeah. No, it'd be good.
If
Let's see.
why we shouldn't reach out to see about doing it.
It could be entirely possible. In which case, that could be Starship 6. Who knows? But
I'm taking myself out of the Spelljammer.
Spelljammer, there's enough out there already. That's the problem. If Wizards of the Coast puts out or indicates that they're gonna do a Spelljammer campaign, fuck yeah, I'm there. But I'd want to see that there's gonna be real interest in it before I venture into that. The thing is, I played Spelljammer, so if I wanted to make Spelljammers, I'd want to make some of the official Spelljammers, like a Hammerhead. I think that'd be awesome to do. But then again, you also have the issue with Spelljammer of, the maps don't really match up with the 3D space and that sort of thing.
Yeah, if there's a product like that you're interested in seeing, like both your mentioned different products you're interested in seeing, going to Discord and going to the suggestion area and posting up the idea in more detail of what you're looking for. And then basically asking others to tag that item, putting a thumbs up or whatever. Because if we get a number of people on the board supporting it, then it's a lot more likely that we might do something with it. That's pretty much the way Ben decides on what he wants to make for the next, ship and so forth.
One can definitely say that that doesn't necessarily apply to Rax 333, who's probably our most proliferous ideas man that's out there.
The idea is to basically let others know that they're watching the stream later.
Yeah.
Not just him.
Oh god, yeah. Let's see. I'm not liking how thick this section is, and it's gonna see here we've got this flat sort of end, so I think we're gonna actually make this a bit ugly and just bring all of these back.
Mana would be huge though.
What?
Mana's a big shift. You're talking about Spelljammer.
Oh yeah. Oh, the Manta. What? Is that your favorite?
No, it's just a big ship. It's got each of the Spelljammers. Some of them are small, like the Elven flyers. So like some of those are kind of tiny. That they're
like the Dragonfly or whatever it's called.
Like or whatnot, but they're small. But others like the Nautilus is like fucking monstrous. That sort of shit.
True that. So let's see. We want to come down here. I mean, Spelljammer, I kind of scoffed at it to begin with because it's like you read the rules and it's like, what? This doesn't follow the laws of physics. This is crazy.
That's kind of the point. It's a fantasy setting, but using fantasy physics, which is I was like the same way. I'm like, what the hell?
Yep.
But
Yeah.
it's different.
But then we played, I think we started at 3rd level all the way up to 17th. Just in Spelljammer. It was one of the best campaigns I've played in. It was really fun. Really good Dungeon Master. The only downside was it was converting direct from 2nd edition, and it felt like the ship component pricing, like we never really upgraded our ship. It was like we found a different ship.
You know, I think Traveler stat blocks would be a good idea for some of this shit.
Traveler stat blocks would be a good idea, I think, and that's something I could actually probably manage because I've played it. Again, back to the sort of Traveler. Nothing against Mongoose. It's just I kind of want a little bit more. Star Wars wise, I was clued into Saga. That's the last edition I really played, so I don't really know what's going on these days with the current what is it, Fantasy Flight version. So that would be something that we would need assistance with if we're going to get stats for.
With it.
So I'm going to do something ugly here, and I'm just going to link this to this, and there's a thought behind it. And the idea is that what we want is this line here that leads from there to there, and we want it to sort of like hug the inside there with a little bit of a gap. So I'm going to get in, where are we? That's the top down, this should be the side here. So this might be hard for you guys to sort of make out, but hey, that's almost perfect. I believe that the underside here, that should be this line that's lighting up red. Oh, I'm about to point to my... I just realized that I'm in front of it. Do I have a stretch goal pathway planned out yet? Partially. It's not completely finished. In fact, it's very, very light at the moment. There will be 2 pathways. One will be for the deck planner. Basically with feature creep on that one. And the other one, of course, is going to be the Notinante. Now, I don't know exactly how many stretch goals there will be, but the detail level on them will be, let us say, higher than it would otherwise be. So, I don't know if we'll have 10 or 15, but I don't expect more than that. The Starship 3 stretch goals, we hit about 30. I think we hit 29, and it was just too much work for what it was. And I feel like the more work there is, the less detail I put into things. So, and it was around about 20, 21 or something for the Chimera. So I'm hoping that we can unlock something similar for about 12 to 15 stretch goals, but good, well built stretch goals. So. So far, I want to do some kind of escape pod system like in the other one. I'd like to do some kind of... I saw Rex333, I think, posted a suggestion, which is more or less the Macross spider bug. I like the idea of having that kind of extra vehicular activity vehicle or something like that that could help with salvaging or repairing the ship. And then aside from that, there's also railgun, upper PDCs so that you can have the sort of angled ones on the nose like the Rocinante has, alternative single engine for the lower section, probably stuff to widen it so that you can basically go vertical hammer. It won't be a hammerhead, but you could sort of like flare it out at the top for a little bit more build space. Basically altering the shape of the ship as usual, but maybe with some more deliberate modules, like say for example, now we're having a repair shot level. It'll be a level that you stick in on top So that kind of thing. Uh, right now, I'm just trying to panic finish this.
Yeah, like it would be an add-on feature later. That you're not a stretch goal, but just a plus add-on if people show interest.
Yeah, I mean, I'm open to some suggestions, but usually there is a big gap between what is realistic and what people want. So uh, sometimes it's not like I'm not hearing the ideas. What I might do is to, like I did for the scout ship and the transport, to have an alternative add-on. I might have something for the Chimera. Like, for example, people have been talking about the bridge again. Maybe that could be a way for it to re-emerge. I could also do yeah, coffin escape pod's not a bad idea. Um, it's I would almost normally just want to turn it into the actual bed, so you would actually have like a slot here on the side, and it's like shoots out the escape pod to get into the bed, and it's the escape pod.
Yeah, I think that's a practical way to do it.
Sorry.
I think that's the practical way of doing it, kind of a coffin type thing like that.
Yeah, that would probably work. Um, so there are a couple of ideas. Um, let's see. Why did I need to do that?
Like a printable mini coffin like bed life pod that journal.
I mean, that would be easy. Yeah. Um, the Expanse doesn't have actual escape pods that I've. Well, larger ships, yes.
Yeah, but when you're role playing games, it becomes one of those things where you know it's an add-on you kind of want to have to for storyline sometimes.
Yeah. And no, don't stop with the suggestions. They're great. Rex 333. It's really not an issue. I have noticed your enthusiasm, and I don't always respond to it because sometimes it's just overwhelming, and sometimes the suggestions are like, "I'd love to do that, but I don't have 4 months to do it." You know, uh, that's the downside.
Feedback has been on the practicality of a suggestion in the sense of scale of how much work it would be to let people know to give help combine further suggestions or to basically talk about how they might become a different project or develop them into a totally separate project maybe for the next ship or something too.
Yeah.
But kind of like what happened with the lighting thing. I mean that started out as an idle suggestion was made that then turned into more and that then turned into a separate thing.
Yep. It probably doesn't help things either. Like I've been looking for some additional help for a while, and I've had to put that on pause because of our current situation in the world. It's
Economics.
not the time for hiring people at the moment, unfortunately.
I work cheap.
Yeah. Let's see.
Yeah, or less volunteer work. I help out. I just sort of help out. I like doing it. It's just I'm a retiree, so it's all kind of to me. It's kind of like helping Ben out, and it's kind of a hobby / thing to do, and it I'm providing some of my expertise to Ben, and he's providing some of his expertise to get modeling and stuff that I'm interested in. So it's kind of worked out between us.
You could say that. Let's see.
But I have a lot of irons out there between various
You
people.
sure do. You're a busy man.
I help Danny with another place called 3D Printed Tabletop, and a couple other people with some of their locations, their boards and discords. I have a couple of YouTubers I'm helping now with script development on some of their channels.
work for test prints. uh, yeah, it's not quite that simple, I'm afraid. The thing is, you work for test prints. I work for money in my business, and it's got to be viable. Look, I'd love to make I like the Garfish, and I like the Horizon Shuttle. Some of the stuff from Genesis Climber is cool. There's a lot of influences that I like, but it's just like so little time for ships that, and I'm always like at a constant. Well, it's the balance between creating a ship that someone else wants and a ship that is my design and I want to work with it, and it's heavily inspired by something, but it has a part in it.
Normal hour, by the way.
Sorry?
You got about 15 minutes on your normal hour show.
Oh yeah. Well, actually, no. It's like 5 minutes, right? We started on the top of the hour.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying you're close to wrap up time if you got closeout stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna have to leave it a little bit earlier today, just because Zoram and I have to start talking about lights, and today is an after work day. Got an old colleague coming up. He's actually a great artist who's worked on Mutant, like the Swedish role-playing game Mutant, like Year Zero, and he's worked on the Swedish version of Cthulhu. He's worked on a bunch of role-playing games as an illustrator. And in fact, some of the graphics from the early Starship stuff was his work that he just let me kindly repurpose. His name is Ola Larsson, so shout out to him. Not that he'll be watching or anything. It is nice to have a couple of you guys in the chat actually putting questions and comments in. And it's nice to see a few new faces too, even the lurkers. Having a look to see how I work and whatnot, I assume. Get some more information. Alright, this wall's sort of starting to shape up now. So, I think we're at a stage where we can comfortably... Okay, the pivot point's in the middle here, so what I'm going to do is show you how I do the duplicate special. So we've got an instance. We have 000 000 in our translate and rotate. So basically what that's saying to me is it's pointed in the right direction. I'm just going to delete the history there so it'll run a bit faster. Now normally I can just do a duplicate special on an instance and it will copy an exact version. But I thought now, since we want it to point in this direction and be an opposite, we may as well do it from the get-go. So in Maya, the way that you can mirror things is by inverting the scale. We have X, Y, and Z there. I can move this up just a bit so you can see a bit better. So technically, there's a little cue here that says that the blue here is Z, the green is Y, and this yellow one, which is normally red, is X. So what that says to me is we want to mirror in X. So if we put -1, click duplicate special, we get our opposite. Alright, don't worry. Just a dry throat from talking. No corona, I promise. We've already had that in this building before, so hopefully we're going to be fine. No matter what people say, things are actually quietening down here in Sweden, so I know a lot of people aren't happy with the way things are handled, but I think our death rate is down to under 20 per day. Something like that. And it's mostly elderly people. Also, we're a lot better about actually accounting for corona when corona is a factor, not so the death rates in Sweden are based on if you die and you have corona, even if you die of something else, you get marked down as having died from corona. So the statistics are not completely reliable in that sense. Anyway, no need to rant on that, I'm sure. Okay, so like I was saying, if this is going to print on its back when we're finished with the floor, we're going to need a piece underneath the floor that's basically going to have the same base as a normal base. There'll be some overhangs under here, but most modern printers will be able to bridge that alright. We should have a slot here, but we should also make it, move this back a tad, and we want to put like an angle on it so that we're coming in at 45 degrees here. Maybe that's a nice figure for that the printer can always handle. Like, I've yet to see a printer that can't handle a 45 degree overhang. So that's sort of a good level to put things in. We'll make this as a separate slot, probably in 2 pieces, so that we can just reuse the tops that slot down into these pieces here to create the door frame. So basically you'll have this on its back, and then you'll have a piece that slots in here as the door frame, and then a piece that slots on top. And in theory, you could use that to have different styles of door frame as well, if you wanted. What this is missing is some more handholds. So I'm going to take this here. I'm just going to move the pivot so that it's hitting the wall, because it should be centered now. So that should be, oh, there we go. Now it's in the wall. So we can't have it in this position. I'm just going to duplicate this a couple of times. But basically my thinking is, if we put 45 degrees on this, my printer will be able to do this. I don't know if everyone's will, but the Prusa's definitely can manage this.
Can handle that.
Yeah. So basically, you won't need supports. It'll just use a bit of bridging. You might get a little bit of drooping, but nothing that a file can't sort of deal with. So you get this nice sort of grip here. The idea being that if the ship isn't under thrust, you can just pull yourself around the corner with something to grip on, essentially.
He says you need to add a coffee maker.
The coffee maker's made. It's just in the kitchen section, the level above, and hydroponics. That's a part of the. That's a part of. If you look at the Notinante, the most like the Notinante part of the ship so far is going to be in the hab section, like with the galley. Anyway, guys, this piece is a few hours off, but I'm hoping to finish it over the weekend, get a test print off, so you'll definitely be able to see that next week to see how it turned out. I'm going to sign off now because Zorma and I have some lighting to sort out, and I hope you guys all have a good weekend. Thanks for joining us. Is there anything else you want to get said before we finish up, Zorma?
Yeah. At the beginning of this chat, if you're clicking in the middle, whatever, you'll see the listing, which shows the links to where to pick up various products. The Discord is the best place to maintain or communicate or ask questions or to give suggestions on product follow up or things you want to see or questions about things going on. Ben had stated in the last one that basically this Kickstarter would be releasing beginning of August, roughly.
Mid-August is probably more likely, especially now that the painters are delayed a bit.
We want to thank you all for stopping by and checking things out. Hope you'll come to see our weekly thing. Just a reminder, about the same time every week on Friday, we do one of these to basically answer questions and give a status update of where we're at currently. So other than that, that's all I got. Thanks.
All right. Thank you very much, Zorma, and thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you next week. Bye, guys.